So I just want to welcome everybody to the February Coffee Connect. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone that's attending. We are covering today the social, emotional, behavioral skill of relationships. So on this lovely Valentine's Day, we are just going to really be focusing on relationship skills. To kind of get us started, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Sarah Gentry. I am the Region 5 Social Emotional Behavioral Learning Specialist. I cover ESUs 13, 15, and 16. I'm going to pass it on to Jill and go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. Jill Gunther, one of the other social emotional behavioral learning specialists with Nebraska NeMTSS, and I serve Region 3. So that's ESUs 1, 7, and 8. We also have Emily with us. Emily serves Region 2. So she serves ESUs 2, 3, and then OPS. And I believe Chandra is also on with us, and she serves Region 4, which is ESUs 9, 10, 11, and 17. And then I'll give it to Mackenzie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mackenzie Rydell. I am the SEBL Specialist for Region 1, which includes the areas of ESU 4, 5, 6, and LPS.
All right, thanks, guys. Okay, so for Valentine's Day, we are going to kick this off with the welcome inclusion activity. Thinking about things we love or maybe don't love or hate it. So I'm going to read off some various things that we've listed. And if you love it, we'd like you to use the reactions on the Zoom screen if you can, or if you want to put it in chat, you want to shout out whether you love it or hate it. I'm just going to name a few things and we'll just play a little game. So the first one is the Valentine's candy hearts. Do you love them or do you hate them? Josie's a love, Mackenzie's not. Jill and Linda both love them. I love them on Valentine's Day, but after that, I'm pretty done with them. Okay, our next one. This one's fun because you get a lot of reactions. Cilantro. Love or hate cilantro? In my household, I love it. My husband says it tastes like soap, so we don't get to use it. Okay, we kind of got a mix. Sarah loves it. Josie, okay. Fun, fun. How about waking up early? We did this on the last Coffee Connect, and it was quite interesting. So my NeMTSS friends who we all host these Coffee Connects early in the morning. None of us are morning people, and I didn't know that until today. So we come here fueled with coffee and enthusiasm and hope that we can give you great content early in the morning, although that's not our comfort spot. How about pickles? Love or hate pickles? Lots of love. Alrighty. And then our last one for this morning, I'm going to go with parties. Love or hate parties? Get a good feel for who the introverts in the room are. Okay, we've got some love, we've got some not so much. I'm not a party person anymore. Maybe I was when I was younger, but I'm a lot less social and wanting to be in crowds now that I'm older. Okay, well, thank you guys for participating in our Love It or Hate It Valentine's Day welcome inclusion activity. I'll go ahead and start moving forward with the rest of our presentation. This slide, just kind of a reminder, we have a Padlet link. The password is MTSS. Within the content of this Padlet, this is just packed full of resources, you guys. If you're looking for social emotional resources, if you have questions, any kind of things that you want to access, you can go ahead and go into that Padlet and you're going to find it. If you don't, you got to just let us know and we'll find it and put it in there. But again, our Coffee Connects are also recorded and then uploaded into our Padlet. So just a great one-stop shop for a lot of great resources. So we always want to make sure that we put that resource into the hands of everybody that attends. And then to kind of kick off our talk about relationships, thinking about this quote, we like to start with quotes. There's so many good things out there that people say. We love what Rebecca Alber said, sorry about that. Learning doesn't happen without relationships. And that's something that we very much believe at NeMTSS, that the foundation of all things starts with our relationships with our colleagues, our relationships with our students. When we're fostering an environment that exists where we are encouraging healthy relationships, we know, and research tells us, that more learning is happening. So really wanted to kind of kick it off with just that quote to kind of ground us in the content that we're getting ready to share with all of you. And then kind of talk about what NeMTSS believes that social, emotional, and behavioral learning is. We really believe that this is a systemic process. We think that teaching social, emotional, and behavioral learning really is included in creating that positive environment for students by setting those positive behavior expectations. We believe that it's linked to overall mental wellness and positive mental health outcomes for everyone. Mental health was added to our definition just within the last year, but we don't think that teaching that they're two separate things. We think that when we're promoting positive mental wellness in our districts, we're also utilizing and teaching social, emotional, and behavioral learning skills. And then that career readiness piece, our Nebraska standards for career readiness is shared on this screen. And we're really putting a lot of emphasis on that, making sure that we're making it very clear to educators and to all of our stakeholders that social, emotional, and behavioral learning is a key component to college and career readiness. These are all skills that we know our students are going to need in the future. This is our SEBL Skills Web. I shared in the last one when I started this job back in August. We were revamping our Skills Web. We've always had one. This is the new and updated version. It's been vetted by, I don't know, dozens and dozens of people. I had no idea how much our content would be vetted and looked at and picked apart and researched and all of those things. So it's really, really great material. Like I said, we put months and months and months work into it. This was just released last month, so it's still pretty new content. So we broke our skills down into 5 content areas where we're really wanting to focus our social emotional learning and our teaching. One of the things that I like about the Skills Web, and I talked about this a little bit before, was this is something that you can put up in front of your staff, in front of even your parents, and say, this is what we're teaching our students. This is what social, emotional, and behavioral learning really is. And with your teachers, what we hope is that they can look at the Skills Web and say, oh, I'm already teaching those things. It's already something that's happening. Because the last thing that our teachers need, and one of the things we have to focus on when we're thinking educator wellness, is they don't need another initiative. They don't need another thing that they have to do. So really making sure that they can look at it and say, hey, I already do a lot of this. So today, as we kind of move forward into this, we are talking about relationships. Our core question with that we came up with is, how do I connect with others? So really, we're going to be thinking about, how do we connect with our colleagues? How do our students connect with one another? How do we connect with our students? How do we connect with our external stakeholders? And we think that there's four main components to that. Thinking about teamwork, working together, how does that happen? Conflict resolution, another really, really big one. When there's harm caused in a relationship, how do we repair that? What does that look like? Kindness. Kindness overall is something that's so important when we're thinking about relationships, treating each other with kindness. And then that communication piece. This is another great resource that we've been working on for a very long time, but it's brand new, kind of thinking about that career readiness, really trying to paint the big picture of what teaching social emotional learning is, social emotional and behavioral learning is, and why it's so important. We created this based on different resources and research on what employers are looking for. What skills do kids need when they're going into the workforce? I think it's also important to say that these are skills that kids need in college, but this is specific to employability skills. And we broke those skills down into the content or into the different skills. We broke it down into our 5 skills, and what are we teaching, and how does that fit into the model that we're utilizing? So thinking about specifically today, our relationship skills, active listening, very, very important. Employers are looking for people that can listen. It's such an important skill. Thinking about communication, how are they writing and communicating? How's their oral communication? Responding to the needs of others, utilizing strengths. So really those skills are broken down, and these are the things that people are looking for. So when you're talking about social, emotional, and behavioral learning, if you don't have a great buy-in, this is one of the resources that can be utilized to say, hey, this is why this is important. It's not an extra thing. It really is the thing. It's the thing that we have to know that has to be included when we're talking to our students and teaching our students different skills. This is our NeMTSS essential elements. Really like to focus on this because I know a lot of times when we think of MTSS, all we're thinking about is that triangle. Oh boy, that triangle. There it is again. So beyond our layered continuum of supports, our tiered supports are so important, and we want to think about those. But we also want to include our database decision making. We don't tier supports without data. We don't build our systems without data. We're looking at the research, we're looking at the numbers, we're assessing our data, we're talking about it, and we're problem solving to build our systems. And then our infrastructure and shared leadership, again, kind of thinking about those relationships. This is a big component of, bringing SEBL into even our essential elements. Our infrastructure and shared leadership, how are we working together collaboratively with everyone, all of our stakeholders, internally and externally? How are we sharing that leadership so it's not all one person? What does our team structure look like? How does that all systematized and built into what we're doing? And then our communication and collaboration, building out these communication plans, knowing how we're going to talk to other people, how we're going to work with different people, thinking about internally, what does that look like? What's our communication plan? How do our leadership teams communicate with our teachers and our paras and everyone in the building? How does that happen? And then thinking our external stakeholders, including our parents, making sure our parents have voice. How are we communicating with them? How are we getting feedback from them? Community partners. And then elevating our student voice kind of falls into that communication and collaboration piece too, making sure that everybody's heard. So those are our 4 essential elements that we kind of use to guide our work. And then we're going to kind of start talking about those relationship skills. What does that look like? So we believe that those are the ability to work collaboratively with the team. We talked about that teamwork piece. Communicate using both nonverbal and verbal cues. Sometimes we kind of forget we're a screen society right now. How do we communicate nonverbally and verbally with one another? And making sure that our students know how to do that. Those are skills that we still have to kind of teach. Reading social cues is so big. And we saw that on that employability skills list. Showing kindness for others through our actions, what we're doing, and then resolving conflicts effectively. So those are all kind of the skills that we're thinking of when we're thinking about how do we connect with others. Breaking those down even more, and I don't want to talk so much into each one, but again, if you're thinking, okay, for our social emotional learning for this month, if you guys stagger it out or however you structure that within your building, if you're thinking, I really want to focus on our building of, hey, data saying we really need to focus on building relationship skills. This is kind of the foundation. This is where we want to start. This is a resource that you can bring up with your teachers. This is kind of building out that skills web just a little bit more. And what does it look like to teach communication? What are the skills that foster healthy communication? So you're thinking about engaging in conversation. What does that look like? How do you teach that? Having conversations about that. How are you modeling this for your students? How's leadership modeling it for their staff? Recognizing, again, we talked about the nonverbal cues. Helping your students do that, and we'll give you some strategies and ideas as we continue on into this presentation on what to do with these. But this is just kind of breaking it down. Like I said, conflict resolution, another really big one. Just thinking of making sure that kids know how to problem solve. I can't think of a time where a student's going to go into the workforce and never have to resolve a conflict in their adult life. It happens, and it happens every day. So it's such an important skill. And teaching them while they're in our building is so important because I mentioned it before, we're not teaching kids to keep them in our hallways for life. We're teaching kids to go out into the real world. So how do we do that and model that and foster that environment where we're teaching them these skills? And kindness. Oh goodness, I love teaching kindness. So this is a kind of a survey that this school, Washoe County school districts did with their students to kind of identify what students think are the relationship skills that are easy versus very, very difficult for them. So they sent out this survey, and this is kind of the results that they got. I love how they kind of color coded it and showed it. But students reported that being polite to adults was the easiest thing for them to do when they were thinking of particular relationship skills. The hardest thing was sharing how they're feeling with others. I think that's interesting. To me, as a mental health practitioner and a social worker, I'm like, oh, that's so interesting to think about. But joining a group that's already talking, so coming in and feeling a sense of belonging, that's a challenge for our students, or at least the students in the school. And I also think that if we were to do this exact same survey, that it would probably look very similar for most of us as well. These are just hard skills. So it really kind of gives you an idea of something that you could do with your students to kind of find out what relationship skills do we want to focus on. But a great resource either way. If you don't want to do it with your students, you still have this data to say, oh, maybe it's really hard for my kids to share how they're feeling with others. How can I teach them that it's okay to be vulnerable? How can I model that in my district? And then thinking about the benefits of building relationships, our teacher-student relationships, thinking about building those relationships and the different successes that happen. We know that it strengthens academic achievement. We know that kids want to come to school when they have a relationship with a trusted adult. So reducing that chronic absenteeism is a big piece of why it's so important to build relationships with our students. It promotes self-motivation. If they know somebody believes in them and they have a cheerleader in the room, they're going to be a little bit more motivated to do things. Strengthen self-regulation. I think that this kind of goes to if you have a relationship with a student, you're probably modeling co-regulation and you're working with them and teaching them that skill more because the relationship and the trust is there. So that just makes sense to me. And then it also really improves the goal-making skills. So again, if a student believes they have a cheerleader in the room, they're going to be more likely to build on their goals. We pulled this from Lori DeSaltis. I probably said her name wrong again. From the book Revelations in Education. She does a lot of neuroscience research, does a lot of presentations nationally. But what she's talking about is that we as educators, we've got to be the first ones to model these things. And these are all pieces and thinking about relationships. So repairing and prioritizing relationships, what goes into that as an educator. So thinking about regulating our own nervous system, our own self-regulation. If we're modeling that for our students, they're learning from our behaviors. Making sure we recognize and we're aware of what causes us to escalate. That vulnerability piece and saying, I'm sorry. If you can model that behavior and teach your students the right way to say, I'm sorry, how do you do that? How do you take accountability for your own actions? That's a really, really big piece, especially when we're thinking about teamwork. And then really focusing on the process, making sure that we're prioritizing our relationships, repairing them, and just making sure that we go first as the educators and we're modeling what we want to see from our students. So these are just some examples of ways that we can teach relationship skills, or ways that it's already happening. So thinking about that adult example, so they're probably already providing opportunities for students to work together, but maybe to one up it a little bit, make it a little bit better, giving specific praise for strong teamwork and collaboration. So if you're focusing on relationship skills, maybe focus on your feedback being specific to strong teamwork and collaboration, and being intentional about that. And it's probably, again, already happening. Teachers just do such a phenomenal job of giving specific praise. Student example, working in groups with others. Who do they normally interact with? Really encouraging them to step outside of their comfort zone, to build a connection, ask questions. It's just another way to really build on those relationship skills in the classroom. Thinking about at recess time, bringing new students in. If there's a group of kids playing on the monkey bars and somebody else comes in, how do they welcome them into this group? How does that student come into the group? Really kind of encouraging and giving them opportunities to then learn how to take turns and work together, and just kind of that inclusion piece. Thinking about strengths. If you've got a student who's really, really good at working on operating specific equipment in the shop classroom, how can you encourage that student to step in and ask another student if they can help them if that student's struggling with that same thing? So again, a lot of things that I think are really happening in our classrooms, but just thinking about it from the lens of I'm teaching a skill and really changing that perspective. This is just an example. We wanted to give some resources on some different curriculum, that we pull out of some different SEL curriculums. This one comes from the curriculum Be Good People. So this is a 9-12 curriculum or lesson. I think it's actually a K-12 curriculum, but this is the 9-12 lesson on maintaining relationships. So what the students do here is they kind of watch a video about healthy relationships, and then they have some activities. So reflective conversation about what connections they see in the topic, talking about different values that are important to them within the context of the relationships that they have. So really some great processing time. And then they have some role play activities that you can kind of see demonstrated there on the right. But we really wanted to make sure that we include some 9-12. A lot of times SEL is kind of really focused on in the elementary, and we forget that we still have to teach our adolescents the same skills. And with that, Mackenzie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. So we're going to dive a little deeper into each of those 4 components that we included on our web. So the first one within relationships is teamwork. So when we think of teamwork, we think of demonstrating leadership skills, being able to problem solve collaboratively with others, practicing accountability and adaptability when working together, and then fostering self-motivation. You'll see a theme throughout today that we're really trying to connect with the NDE career readiness. And so this here is a lesson plan that comes from their website. If you haven't been, you should go click on that link. They have lots and lots of pre-made lessons already around different topics. So we just pulled a couple here. This first one is on cooperation and teamwork. It's geared for a 3rd grade class. And it just talks about working with others and how does working with others make things easier. You have them identify some different skills that they might need to be a good teammate. And then you also have them problem solve and brainstorm. What are some careers or some jobs that might need teamwork? So thinking again forward into that career aspect, but also thinking about how do we need to work together today in order to be successful tomorrow. This one is a throwback to my camp counselor days. We did a lot of team building at summer camp, and I think that part will always live in my heart and make me happy forever. But this activity, it's called Insanity. I don't super love the name, but the goal is to shift from competition to cooperation. So the gist of it is there's tennis balls, and you have to get all the balls into your hoop. But you can't throw the balls, you can only carry one at a time, and you can't like guard your hoop. There's no like tackling involved. But the goal is at first they all are trying to like get them all in their hoop because that's what we do naturally. And then they realize, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to win this game if I do it this way. So eventually they realize they have to pick up their hula hoop and put it on the other hula hoop and have all the balls in the middle. And everyone's a winner, woohoo. And then you debrief it. So you talk about like who won, how many teams did we start and end with? Can we relate this game to our daily lives? How does it relate? And I'm actually really excited. I'm going to do it with a staff team coming up this week. And we do the compass activity a lot, where you talk about like different like leadership components or different ways of working. And so we're going to relate it to that and see like when you were doing this activity, did you see your north come out, or were you kind of like sitting back trying to strategize? So we're able to connect it to things. And so just a fun little team building activity. And the link here, it has all of the debrief questions and how to set it up too. And then we also pulled some children's books to support the work. And so here are a few examples of books you can use to support that teamwork or that teamwork message. The next sub-skill is communication. And so when we're thinking of communication, we're thinking of initiating and engaging in that conversation. practicing active listening, being able to read or understand nonverbal cues, and then utilizing genuine assertiveness, which when we think of that, we think of just being able to stand up for your needs, being able to communicate what you need, kind of like self-advocate for yourself. So another CTE lesson, this one is on communication skills. It's geared for 8th graders. And the gist of the lesson is you kind of model saying something with very heavy nonverbal cues, and then you have them identify, the students will identify, like, how does the message change based on the way that my nonverbals were, like what were they communicating that changed the way you understood the message. And then you offer a role play and have them kind of discuss a scenario where the students are talking about things, and they're trying to use their nonverbals to change the way that their message is received. So that is a lesson pre-made from the CTE website. This next one here is from Dr. Holly Hattenbowers. She works at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and she talks about, I named it the 3 H's of support. I don't know if that's what she calls it, but she called the 3 H's: hear, help, and hug. A lot of times our natural instinct is to help. We want to fix things. We want to problem solve. And that's great if the person wants that kind of support, but also learning ourselves and teaching our students that sometimes people just want to talk. They just want to be heard. And so that would be the hear of the first H. Help, again, we already kind of know what that means: problem solving, being able to listen and then problem solve, help them understand, make action steps, etc., offer advice. And the third one is a hug. Sometimes we just need somebody to be in the space. Maybe we don't want to talk about it at the moment. Maybe we don't want to solve it. We just need somebody with us. We need a little bit of that social support. And so a nice little visual that you can use with your students, or just as a reminder for yourself to hear, help, or hug, but not always just help. This one here, it could be used for elementary, but I think it would be most powerful in the secondary. It's called philosophical chairs, and it's really just an activity where you're engaging the class in a structured debate about a certain topic. And so you provide a prompt, so it could be anything. It could be about buying local food is better than large corporations. It could be talking about shorter recess is good for avoiding conflicts. Just any prompt that you have the students think independently. What do I think about this prompt? And then have them pick, do they agree, do they disagree, or are they neutral or undecided? And then you have them engage in discussion. You're wanting them in their independent time to think about some evidence or things that maybe support why they agree or disagree or aren't sure. And then they have that conversation. You're encouraging students through the conversation to identify something that people said that maybe sparked their interest or they didn't think about, and encouraging them that it's okay if you change your view. And then at the end of the discussion, you have students reflect and debrief. And the goal really is to understand that it's okay if you change your mind. Mental flexibility is a good strength to have. It's not a weakness if you change your mind. It's really just a sign of growth. And so that's a kind of cool activity you can use. Could definitely relate it to an academic topic also. And then we pulled some more children's books to support the work around communication. So these are a couple book covers. If you're interested, you can look those up. And then conflict resolution. When we're thinking of conflict resolution, hopefully we're not the bottom left picture, although sometimes maybe that's what happens in our schools. And sometimes we like to hide and we don't like conflict, but really identifying that it's okay to have conflict. We want to practice our emotional regulation when in conflict, being able to negotiate that constructively, thinking solution-based thinking, and also asking reflective questions, trying to understand the other side are all good skills when it comes to conflict resolution. We have a CTE lesson plan around conflict. It's for grade 7, and the lesson looks at and discusses some ways that you can effectively and ineffectively handle conflict, and then it relates it to how can you do this, where does this come up in school, and also in your workplace or potential jobs in the future. We're doing a lot of work around restorative practices in the state, so we're trying to pull some little gems here and there. And if you're interested in doing more restorative practice stuff, stay tuned, because we are hopefully putting out some more information. But when we think of the 5 R's of restorative practice, we think of relationships, respect, responsibility, repair, and reintegration. And conflict kind of lies in all of these in a way. And so when we think of relationships, that's really the foundation of building that connection, that belonging in our community. That's a really great prevention aspect when it comes to preventing conflict. We have respect, but also a prevention aspect, thinking about listening to others' perspectives, being able to listen even if you agree or don't agree. And then, yeah, really just having that respect in relationships. And then when we think of transforming conflict, we think of responsibility. So being able to take responsibility for any harm that you may cause in conflict in situations. And then identifying that we all need to take responsibility for our community. And then when we think of repair, that is when there has been some harm done, maybe some hurt feelings, some hurt relationships. So being able to repair, to come, I guess, to the table, to the circle, to come together and be able to resolve feelings, talk about the things that were done, how it impacted others, and then being able to regain that respect for everybody involved. And then reintegration is that resolve piece. And so after the conflict has been discussed and identified, then we are able to accept and move on and reintegrate back as a community. And so those all kind of sit within that conflict resolution area based in restorative practice. And then books to support the work. These are about conflict resolution. And I'll hand it over to Jill.
Awesome. Thanks, Mackenzie. All right, next up we have kindness. So if we're thinking about those skills within our web that we shared, that Sarah shared at the beginning, kindness, really thinking about being trustworthy, standing up for others, seeking and offering that support as well as that help, and then resisting negative social pressure. So just sharing some different resources that you guys might want to tap into as you're really working to target those skills of kindness. This first one here, we've shared this before, but definitely worth sharing again. These kindness calendars for schools, just a great resource. There's lots of other things embedded within their website as well, some different like lesson plans and some different ideas around the topics of kindness. But we really love the calendars. They are things that could be hung up like in the classroom, maybe just in the front office, maybe in like a central part of the school. You could incorporate challenges amongst colleagues, amongst students, things like that to try to check off whatever the kindness challenge is for the day throughout the month. So definitely something to check out if you haven't in the past. Next up, we wanted to link in one of the CTE lessons that goes along with relationship skill building as well. So this one is on becoming a good friend. It is for 3rd grade specifically, but it is a lesson where they are really working to build like a web, so of some different attributes that they see in their friends. So what are the characteristics that some of their good friends or some of their best friends display, and creating that web of those different characteristics and talking about just different ways that they display those characteristics. Then you can have students share out what what skills that they put on their web, like why they've identified these people as their good friend and these characteristics that they display, and then talk about some of the commonalities and why that makes a good friend. And so really talking about some of those just different skills that are part of those relationships and how we might identify those. So a great skill that could be utilized when we're targeted, or a great lesson that could be used to really target that skill of kindness as well. Next up, a few other resources. So secret kindness agents, lots of different varieties that you could incorporate something like this, but we have a few links here on the slide, also a TED Talk as well. But if we're thinking about secret agents, secret kindness agents, more specifically, being able to identify just doing some like random acts of kindness, just anonymously performing those acts of kindness within the school, maybe even within the community as well. Students might identify like a secret kindness agent name to even really kind of dig into it. They can brainstorm some different possible acts of kindness, again, within the school setting, maybe just within their classroom, within the community, and why those different acts of kindness might be important, how it might make others feel, how it might make them feel. And then they're performing those different acts of kindness throughout the week. As they perform those different acts of kindness, they come back together and just really share and reflect on, hey, how did this make others feel? How did this make us feel as well? And really just kind of talking through that as well. So a great just activity that could be incorporated pretty easily within the classroom setting or within the school as well. Next up, we have this bystander activities packet. Lots of information embedded within that link as well, but it really explores just the role of a bystander, what that means. It engages in some different just like role-playing scenarios, really kind of talking about kindness, talking about standing up for others, talking about how to prevent or how to stop, how to step in to different bullying situations. And then the Everyday Heroes packet or activity that we also have just kind of screenshotted on the slide here. Students are just kind of making some connections, kind of reflecting on different experiences, how it might make them feel, how it might make others feel in those different situations. In those bullying situations, or what they've seen happened to others. And so what it takes to make like an everyday hero, how we might stand up for others, how we might stand up against bullying that might be happening in our classroom or in our school. But that message, or the overall message of the activities that are linked within, is really just reinforcing kindness, really kind of showing like having an appreciation for others, having an appreciation of understanding how we might make others feel, or how others might feel in different situations. We also have some books around kindness. So we have those there as well, if those are ones that you would like to dig into to explore, really targeting that skill within your classroom as well. And then just some additional resources around relationship building. So we have a few linked in for you. Mission Monday. So we had a speaker at our summit this past October. I might butcher his name here. Sam Stecker. Am I saying it right? Yes, I'm getting a nod. So, but has lots of great resources, has a YouTube channel, has Facebook, Twitter, or X, or whatever we call it these days, different podcasts as well, but most known for just Mission Mondays and really describing what that is, putting some different like actions or some different challenges as missions out to people that we could utilize, whether it be within the school, within the district, within the community, even just in your company. And so he puts these out on both social media as well as through the podcast as well. But it's just like an easy action. So a mission that you can challenge yourself to, you can challenge others to, just really in order to make a positive impact. And some examples, so things like maybe just thanking someone or identifying someone and sending out a message, showing that gratitude of a role that they had in your success. So that's just one example of a mission that was identified. The YouTube channel also has like tons of different videos on some of the different missions, different perspectives, how you might change up different missions that have been done to really display that visible positive impact, no matter where you are. So something to definitely check out and explore how you might incorporate that in your school or district. A few other things here. So we have this link, this document has some just different great ways to be able to incorporate building those relationships. So really talking about all of those skills that we've honed in on this morning, just through some different practice, through some different opportunities within the classroom. Be able to review those things. Some of these might be things that you're already doing in the classroom, but this document just kind of does a really nice job of outlining how we might target or how we might talk about some of those specific skills within the classroom setting. And so things like maybe classroom buddies or lunch buddies, having classroom meetings and really identifying some like shared norms and values and what that could look like. Maybe putting together like a class contract, even just like think, pair, share activities as well. So some great ones to just kind of explore what that might look like in building relationships within the classroom setting. This next one, so this relationship mapping initiative, it actually comes from Harvard. We came across it in our searches. It sounds very interesting. I don't know if anybody has heard of it, anybody has dug into it before, but we would encourage you guys to take a look or check it out. We've linked in the website here, but this initiative is something, like I said, that we came across from Harvard. It promotes positive youth mental health. It really works to build connections within schools. So really offering that support for schools to be able to identify students that maybe don't have those positive relationships or don't have at least one adult that they feel like they're able to go to talk with, that they have a trusted relationship with. Participation in this initiative is free. There is like an application or like an interest form on their website as well, but those that are selected to be part of the initiative, they get access to some like evidence-based mental health related just like classroom materials, classroom resources. They have some like virtual trainings that schools participate in. They have a component for like parents, for caregivers as well. That's just part of the initiative. But again, the application, the interest form is all on the site. It looks like it's closed for right now, but it does say that there is like another one opening up soon. It doesn't have a date that I came across, but again, something to just kind of maybe keep in your back pocket to explore maybe later. This next one, we also have this YouTube video linked in on the 5 elements of developmental relationships. So the video just kind of goes into exploring what you see there. So providing support, just working to expand possibilities, challenging that growth, sharing power, and expressing care. So something that we wanted to also link in as just an additional resource as well. Lastly here this comes from the Search Institute. So it's this developmental relationships framework, but it identifies those 5 strategies here. So expressing care, challenging growth, providing support, share power, and expanding possibilities that we saw there as well, but really working to deepen those relationships, helping people grow, helping people thrive. But we really liked the visual that they have here as well. And so just kind of a couple resources, the video, the PDF that you see here as well. All right. And then just a few reminders as far as some things that we have coming up. So our next Coffee Connect, March 27th, you can certainly register for that. We have the QR code and the link on there as well. Our suggested SEBL training roadmap, as well as our spring events flyer. So we have a tier 2 check-in, check-out coming up on February 20th. So if that is something that your school or district is interested in, you can certainly register through those links there as well. Let us know if you have any questions. Our summit, save the date. This will be here before we know it, but make sure and mark down on your calendar September 26th and 27th for our annual Nebraska MTSS Summit. And then we have our exit ticket that we will also, Mackenzie just dropped it in the chat there. Any feedback around topics or particular resources that you guys are looking for in our Coffee Connects, you can certainly include there. Also, if you need a certificate of attendance, you can request one through that exit ticket link. I mentioned the March 27th date for our next Coffee Connect. It is around supporting educators. And then lastly, as we close out our time together today, so for our optimistic closure, you guys can certainly just drop it in the chat, but we'd love for you guys to just think about what is something that's making your heart happy today, especially on this Valentine's Day, just going along with that continued theme here. What are some things that are making your heart happy? What makes you smile? What brings you joy? Or even just thinking about things that have already maybe happened this morning. I shared in our last Coffee Connect something that's making my heart happy today. So I woke up this morning to our bedroom door being decorated in just some different hearts from my youngest, of just different reasons that she loves her family, loves her mom, loves her dad, and just wrote those all out on hearts. And then she got up at 5 a.m. this morning and taped them to our door. So that made my heart very happy this morning. But if anybody wants to share in the chat, we'd love to hear what's making you happy today.
I have something I would like to share.
Yes.
My granddaughter, who is in kindergarten, there was an opportunity for the children to buy Valentines for their classmates for, I think it was like $1. And then they got like a candy or something. Well, her mother asked her, well, which of your classmates, your friends, do you want to get a Valentine for? And she goes, well, all of them, because nobody should be left out.
Oh, I love that.
And she's very stoic about that. It's just like, well, what a dumb question. So that's her. But
I
that's
absolutely love it.
me too. Made my heart happy.
Yes.
I was
Beautiful weather. I see somebody dropped in.
gonna say, I was able to do some circle time work this morning with a group of kindergartners. So starting the day with kindergartners always makes my heart happy.
I love it. Absolutely. Mackenzie, your son was excited to match everyone, having a visit from a friend, having coffee with a friend. Absolutely. Love all of those things. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this morning. Happy Valentine's Day and enjoy the rest of your day.